Welcome, 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 everybody, once again to another session with Coach Steele's Finance Training. Happy to have everybody tuned in on today to Coach Steele's Finance Training. And I'm your host with the most, Coach Steele. And here on Coach Steele's Finance Training, we talk about all things financial literacy. And most importantly, of course, our topic on today is 9 ways to profit on real estate investing, long term real estate investing. And that's talking about when you have these long term rentals, these what we also call buy and holds. And so I want to talk to you all today about that and what it looks like and how you can benefit from it. And of course, I am speaking from experience because I do have long term rentals. I like to buy and hold, and I want to talk to you all about the benefits of it, how I win, how I'm able to have success in that space. Many of you that listen in to Coach Steele's Finance Training know I love talking about real estate investing. So hold on to your seatbelts because that is the topic for today. So let's dive into it. And of course, when we look at long term rentals, and as y'all are tuning in to Coach Steele's Finance Training, make sure you share the live with other people as we have this real estate investing conversation. Hopefully, this is knowledgeable and gives you some insight, some understanding, and motivates you to say, you know what? How can I go find some real estate? How can I go find some investment property? Like, and if I do want to dive into real estate, why should I? Why does it make sense? Why do people keep saying that real estate investing is one of the quickest ways to build wealth in America? Why has it consistently been one of the amazing ways for people to gain wealth in America? So those are some of the things that we want to look at and understand. And so, of course, I want to talk to you about 9 different reasons and ways to become wealthy when it comes to real estate investing, long term rentals. And so, as y'all are tuning in, is there anybody that has some real estate, some property or single family unit, multi-family unit? Do I have any real estate investors already tuning in right now? Be interested to see if there are already some investors in on the room here on Coach Steele's Finance Training. Normally, we go live every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone. Running a little bit behind today. So, but we're still going to knock it out and get it done. So, when it comes to real estate investing, long term rental real estate can produce multiple layers of profit. And of course, not just the monthly rent check. Sometimes people think about that. Well, you're just getting this monthly rent check, and sometimes it may not be as much. But I want you all to look at long term rentals holistically, how you benefit, how you win off of the rental market when you buy and hold long term. It's not just the monthly rent check. And as an investor, we can teach how you can stack these returns, how you can really multiply your money, let your money multitask, let your money work for you with these long-term rentals. As you are tuning in to Coach Steele's Finance Training, make sure you share the live for other people to see, other people to tune in and have this conversation on today. Many of you know there are times where I tie in biblical principles to what I am teaching as well, because certain principles do not fail. And so as you all are tuning in, of course, you can also follow me, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Coach Steele's Finance Training on YouTube as well. Make sure you go and subscribe. Now, one of the reasons, of course, which I just discussed and mentioned already, why you should have long term rentals, why you should invest in real estate is, of course, that monthly cash flow. And some people, they're afraid to dive into that real estate space because they're like, well, how do I know to buy a property? How do I know when I'm going to make a monthly profit? Of course, that's the easy part of knowing whether or not you'll be profitable. It's not complicated. There's some basic math that we do, when you're trying to look at your cash on cash return or what your profit margin will be and things like that. Those are basic math. Those are basic formulas that you can find out and punch in numbers, and that will allow you to say, oh, I should make this deal or I shouldn't make the deal. But my point is, one of the reasons why you should dive into real estate investing is that monthly cash flow. It is the most obvious form of profit. It is the most immediate uh, tangible form of profit when you dive into real estate investing is that monthly income. And I know some people are going to say, well, what if the tenant doesn't pay their rent? Things like that. We're going to dive into all of that on today. So as y'all are tuned in to Coach Steele's Finance Training, make sure you share the live as we talk about ways to win with real estate and 9 different ways to make money off of long-term rentals. So for example, let's say, and when we talk about cash flow, I'm basically saying the rent minus your operating expenses minus the debt service. In other words, minus your overhead. When we talk about that cash flow, right? And as y'all are tuned in to Coach Steele's Finance Training, please feel free to comment in the comment section as well. I love reading your comments and your thoughts. So when we look at the rent, let's say the rent on the property is $2,000, but let's say your operating expenses are $500, but the mortgage that you pay to the bank, the financial institution, the finances is $1,150. So think about it. The rent is $2,000, operating expenses is 500, and the mortgage, the financing is $1,150. That means every month, even though you receive $2,000 from the tenant, there's also $1,650 that has to go to overhead to cover things, right? So what is the difference? What is the arbitrage? What is the difference there? That's $350 a month. So if your monthly cash flow is $350 a month, then 350 times 12 is how much? Those that are tuned in to Coach Steele's Finance Training, if you make 350 a month times 12, then annual cash flow would be about $4,200. Now, the cool part about that is, when some people say, well, only 350 a month, there's a lot of people living paycheck to paycheck every single month struggling. But think about this. What if your job won't give you a raise, if your job won't get you a promotion, but you can go make an investment and make an extra $350 a month, which is an extra $4,200 a year. Now, on the surface, you just say, well, I made an extra $4,000 this year. And that's outside of your job. That's outside of your 9 to 5. That's outside of if rent goes up. How many people tuned in Coach Steele's Finance Training already understand that rent is going to increase? So as we look at this, you start off making an extra $4,200. Eventually, it'll be an extra $5,000, an extra $6,000 a year. So no matter whether your job understands you deserve a promotion, a raise, or increase, or opportunity to make more money, you have empowered yourself through the power of long-term real estate investing to give yourself a chance at making more moolah. So that's just point number 1 on today is you get monthly cash flow. So in that example, that would be an extra $350 a month if rent never increases. Now, the goal is to purchase properties where rent produces positive cash flow after all realistic expenses can be paid. So that's number 1 on today when we look at different ways to win with real estate. Now, of course, I have multiple doors. I have real estate investment properties. And with that, every single month, like clockwork, I have rent coming in. So for somebody who may say, well, what if the tenant doesn't pay rent? Usually tenants pay rent more than they don't pay rent. So let's say you got 12 months in the year. Most tenants are going to pay rent all 12 months. But good morning, Reg Cash. Happy to have you tuned in to Coach Steele's Finance Training. Good morning to you, Devon. Happy to have you tuned in to Coach Steele's Finance Training. Artemis, happy to have you tuned in to Coach Steele's Finance Training. So when we look at this, guys, when you have multiple doors, because some people say, well, what if you have multiple doors? What if you only have one door? I find that with multiple doors, if one tenant somehow is late on rent or misses rent, it's not that big of a deal because the other people paying, it helps cover down. So, you don't really lose much sleep when you have multiple doors because most people are going to pay rent because most people don't want to be homeless. They don't want to be put out. They have regular good jobs. And on top of that, when it comes to getting that monthly cash flow, getting that rent, It's also about doing your research and having a good property management team, ladies and gentlemen, that will go find good tenants, that will go find good renters, people with jobs, people with good backgrounds. So it increases the chances that they're going to do the right thing. So some things that people worry about, they shouldn't, especially if you're willing to do what it takes to get the right tenants. If you get good property management and you're willing to compensate property management the right way, great property management produces great tenants, which produces great money and consistent. So think about those things. Some people say, well, I want to manage the property myself. Okay, well, now you got to go find good tenants. Now you have to go find consistent people. And so you're spending time doing other things. Let's get to point number two on today. Point number two on today, ladies and gentlemen, as you're tuned in to Coach Steele's Finance Training, another way to win and be profitable with long-term real estate is appreciation. How many people know what appreciation is? Of course, appreciation isn't just, oh, I appreciate you, thank you for all that you do. But when it comes to real estate, appreciation, your property may increase in value over time. I love appreciation. Listen to me. When inflation happens, properties usually appreciate. When pandemics happen, properties appreciate. Things went up in value. So, for example, let's say you buy a property for $250,000, but the future value, let's say 3, 5 years later, it ends up appreciating in value, and now it's worth 300,000. If you bought it for 250 and now it's worth 300, the appreciation is $50,000. And this is the cool part about appreciation, ladies and gentlemen. You really didn't do anything at all to create this appreciation. When your properties appreciate in value, it's because you were doing nothing. You were chilling. You were letting time go by. You was letting inflation in the world, issues do what they do. And so, good morning to you, Mr. Tony Sherman. I see you tuned in to Coach Steele's Finance Training as well. Let's see, popularity of your best VIP that gives you your company's great funds and wealth of profits. So, as y'all are tuned in to Coach Steele's Finance Training, and we are continuing to talk about ways to win with long-term real estate, long-term buy and holds. Appreciation is point number two on today. That property will appreciate in value, and you don't necessarily have to sell to benefit from the appreciation. Someone is like, okay, it appreciated in value. So what does that mean? Is that extra monthly cash flow? Well, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to necessarily sell to benefit from appreciation. Increased equity can potentially give you additional options that you may look at if it's beneficial, if it makes sense. And it's one of the qualities and benefits of real estate investing that I love to talk about. So as y'all are tuned in to Coach Steele's Finance Training, make sure you share the live for other people to see. Like I said, normally we go live 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone, but we're running a little bit behind today, but that's okay. We're still going to tackle these 9 different ways to make that moolah, to make that money off of long-term buy and holds. I really need our community here on Coach Steele's Finance Training. I need everyone on the team to understand the importance of diving into this real estate space so that you can win, so that you're not intimidated to get a property. Some people are told misnomers. Some people are told myths and things to make them run away from real estate investing, when if you know the truth, it should make you run to real estate investing. If you understand the principles and the fundamentals and the ways to succeed in the real estate space, it should make you run too. You should be studying the marketplace 24/7 when you understand how you can win. And of course, if you add real estate investing to your portfolio and you're not just reliant on your regular 9 to 5, you give yourself a chance to be financially successful in a different space that doesn't become dependent on your boss, that doesn't become dependent on your supervisor. Real estate investing is another opportunity for you all to set yourself free financially from the rat race in a whole nother field that really doesn't determine your level of education, your degrees, your friend group and things like that. Real estate investing as a whole, like sometimes when you sell something, people have to come look at your brand or may come to your store, and I have plenty of entrepreneurs, business owners here that listen in on Coach Steele's finance training. And I see your question, Vaughn, when you say, how does the marketplace work? And we'll dive on that into that as well. But when you're a business owner, you sell a personal product, sometimes people will do business with you based on whether they like you or not, or they like your product, or whether they need it or not. But 99.9% of America or the world, most people need a place to stay. They need a place to lay their head. And based on you providing a house or a door or a place for someone to live, they don't look at the color of your skin or your age or of your political positions and things like that or status to decide whether or not they're going to lay in the housing that you provide. Most of the time, they don't even know it's your house. The property or the LLC will be in a completely different name. It's neither here nor there. They don't care who owns the property. They like it. They need a place to lay down. And that's why real estate is such a beautiful equalizer when in the financial marketplace. Now, when we look at different things, Vaughn, when you say, how does the marketplace work? Devon, it is so many different ways to dive into real estate, whether you just become an investor, whether you a silent investor with the finances, or whether you're out there beating the street on the ground and you're finding the properties, doing the deals and things like that. Now, there's multiple ways to dive into real estate space, whether you're doing tax lien auctions, short-term rentals like Airbnbs, long-term rentals, if you're doing fix and flips, if you're doing the Burr method, there's so many different ways, right? Happy to have you tune in to Coach Steele's Finance Training. Timothy Scott, good morning to you. Yvette, happy to have you tuning in as well. Now, when we look at this, Vaughn, every city marketplace is slightly different when it comes to real estate. So it's like you can't compare. Like if people are selling water everywhere, they're selling water. Sometimes water prices about the same everywhere you go. But when it comes to real estate, the real estate market space place, like in California, is completely different as it is in Georgia, as completely different from Georgia as it is to New York. It's just completely different far as how much bang you'll get for your buck. If you're in the South somewhere far off in the country, you probably don't have to pay that much for real estate. And you're getting more land, more house, everything for a cheaper price. But at the same time, it limits to what you're around and things like that. So every marketplace is going to be different. Bigger cities, more people, usually the higher cost, and the more you can charge rent and things like that. So you have to study each marketplace, each city to really get an understanding of what to expect in that marketplace. So very good question there, Vaughn. Hope you're doing well, and I appreciate you sharing the live on TikTok as well. Tony Sherman says, how does this appreciation affect your property taxes when not selling property? Good question, Mr. Tony Sherman. Now, when we look at point number two, and that's one of the ways to benefit from real estate, long-term real estate investing, sometimes people are intimidated to have long-term rentals and keep their properties because they're like, the property taxes keep going up every year. This house appreciates in value, property taxes keep going up, it's cutting into my profits. Most of the time, ladies and gentlemen, when you are buying a property, you want to take that into account. So when you're buying these properties, you want to buy right. Like that's one of the biggest things you can do to make sure that you have cash flow and the benefits appreciation state benefits is you got to buy right. And once you buy right, you're going to consistently win. Now, when you buy right, that means you have created a buffer. You have taken into account that property taxes will go up. So my cash on cash return, my monthly profits are going to stay strong. Now, when property taxes go up, in other words, the effects of inflation hit the world, usually rent goes up as well. And so Timothy Scott said it as well. Rent, raise your rent. What will happen is rent usually increases. Now, if you have great property management in place, when they notice these things, they will hit you up. Of course, they don't call. Usually they'll send you an email. That's the benefit of passive income. I really don't have to do anything but answer an email and say yes or no. You get on there, you read something and you type YES or NO. They'll say, hey, we want to raise the rent. We want to increase the rent on this property. Are you okay with it? Do you want to leave it the same? If you say, hey, I want to leave it the same, I don't want to put any stress on the tenant, just leave things as is, then you are agreeing to take the financial burden that comes with that. Your property taxes are going to go up and your profit margin will decrease slightly because you refuse to increase the rent. And so what will happen is your neighborhood or community, the comps in your area, the rent will go up because other investors are going to raise the rent. Yours is going to stay low. Now, there's pros and cons to that. Your profit margin decreases, but 9 times out of 10, your tenant isn't going anywhere because everybody else has raised rent and the tenant doesn't want to move because you got the lowest rent on the block. So you don't have to have as much turnover because the tenant knows that they got it made. So easy way for that to not affect you, Tony Sherman, is the rent is going to increase if you allow it. So very good question. Now, we've talked about appreciation for a while. Let's get to point number 3 on today. I'm happy that y'all are tuned in to Coach Steele's finance training on today. Let's get to point number 3 on another way that we can grow wealth, make money, win with real estate, invest, and be able to profit. Tenant paid principal reduction. What does that mean? Tenant paid principal reduction. As y'all are tuned in, I want you to understand that every time the tenant pays you rent, now some of you investors out there, your properties may be paid off completely. They may be paid in full. And so if your property is paid in full, then guess what? You don't necessarily really have overhead. Like I have some properties that are completely paid off, right? So if they're paid off, then all I'm really paying annually is insurance and property taxes. That's it. And so the rest of it is all profit. And when the property is paid off, your profit margin, your monthly profits are amazing. It's beautiful. So and another thing I want you all to understand, when you're getting that monthly cash flow that we talked about on point number 1, and these tenants are paying you rent, don't rush to spend the profits. So many investors, they start making a little extra money because you got to remember that this tenant is going to give you a down payment. You're going to get that deposit. You're going to get that first month's rent. And so now you got a couple $1,000s in your pocket. Don't rush and spend that. Sit it in the business account, sit it to the side. You may have to call the plumber or the AC guy or someone to come fix something, repair something, look at something. And so you want to have not a nest egg, you want to be able to have money on hand to handle some type of situation or emergency. Or let's say a tenant doesn't pay rent, ladies and gentlemen. It's okay. If you do have overhead that you need to pay, you have set so much to the side that you can pull from it and cover down and take care of whatever you need to take care of. So I'm happy to have y'all tuned in on Coach Steele's finance training. Some of y'all are tuned in on TikTok. Some of y'all are on Facebook. Some of you are on YouTube. Wherever you are, make sure you subscribe, follow, share. For other people to join in this conversation, we need to talk about real estate investing with our team here on Coach Steele's finance training and why it's important for our community to dive into this space. There's too many people becoming wealthy to where we have to stop listening to myths and bust these myths so that we can grow our wealth. Tenants are going to pay you money. And so when you get that money, and let's say you do have financing or overhead, you take a portion of that rent that the tenant gives you and you put it towards the bill. Well, when that mortgage has a principal and interest payment, a portion of that payment goes to the principal, a portion of it goes to the interest, it goes to the bank's pocket, right? But when you put it towards that principal, that is the tenant paid principal reduction that we're talking about here on Coach Steele's finance training. So now this is one of the most powerful concepts for real estate investors. Now we talked about how the property appreciates in value on point number 2, but then when the tenant is paying towards the principal, oh, it's a beautiful harmony and sequence of events that happen when you're getting monthly cash flow, when the property is appreciating in value and tenants are paying towards the principal balance on that property, on that financing. When your tenant pays rent, part of the money goes towards the mortgage principal. I see a question Vaughn has. How long did it take to balance all of that out? And does education help with funds? Wow, with real estate. So when you're looking at that, Devon, one thing I did was I definitely read books and I do go to occasional conferences about real estate. Some of the things that I go to about real estate have nothing to do with real estate investing, but it puts me in an environment where there may be real estate investors and people that are knowledgeable about real estate. There are times where I may go look at properties because I need to see what the marketplace is doing. I want to get a feel for it. I may find a deal that I wasn't looking for. I may get with the real estate agent and say, yeah, what's on the market right now? Talk to me, so I can get a feel of understanding. Uh, and also, Devon, when you talk about education, yes, I read books about real estate investing. I watch videos about real estate investing. But whenever I watch videos or someone online talking about real estate investing, I don't take everything that they say as face value. I still do my own homework. I do my own due diligence. I do things to verify what I've learned. Is it true? Is it factual? Does it work? Does it pass common sense tests? Things like that. So those are some of the things you want to look at as well. Go to conferences, find a mentor, find someone who's in that space and has time to show you and help you grow, and be willing to do what it takes to keep the pace to continue to learn and grow in that space, because there's multiple ways to dive into real estate. I'm just more so into long hold, long term buy and hold, for a reason, and there's a strategy to it as well. So let's go a little bit further here when we talk about tenant paid principal reductions, one of the most powerful concepts for real estate investors. Now, suppose your tenant rent helps you reduce the mortgage balance by $300 a month. I want you to understand this. Like, they pay you rent, and let's say 300 of that goes to the principal balance. That's $3,600 additional equity per year. Every year at minimum, that tenant, let's say you only do the minimum of that, that's $3,600 a year that is going to equity. The house is appreciating in value. The tenant is paying down the property, and it keeps increasing equity. So every month, every year, that gap gets bigger. That's an opportunity there that you have access to as the tenant pays the property down. Now, when we look at this, and we continue to go further, I want you all to understand something, that um, this is Coach Steele's Finance Training. And with Coach Steele's Finance Training, we are a global community. We are international, baby. So with that, we have people tuned in America. We have people tuned in Cameroon, Africa. We have people all over the world. So when I wear this hoodie, ladies and gentlemen, guess what? I'm representing everybody. So make sure you have your face in the place. We're happy to have you here tuned in to Coach Steele's Finance Trainer, and it's all love. Let's go a little bit further. So if that person is paying 3,600 additional equity every year to pay down the balance, you receive rent, you paid your expenses, and simultaneously you reduced your debt. You reduce your debt by what the tenant gave you. Yes, the tenant, through their income and their payments, are paying down your debt. And eventually the house will be completely paid off. And when the house is paid off by them paying towards the principal, now you have a completely paid off property, right? And now it's not only that property paid off, but now you just increased your profit margins because your cash flow is going to increase because the overhead has decreased. There are so many beautiful ways to growing in real estate and being able to be profitable when it comes to real estate investing. So that was number three, tenant paid principal reduction. Let's get to number four. Now, wealthy people, ladies and gentlemen, when you're trying to build wealth, they love number four. Number four is tax benefits. Rental real estate can provide tax advantages, although the actual benefits depend heavily on your tax situation. Now, when it comes to tax benefits, when it comes to real estate investing, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand that you need to make sure you have a CPA, a professional. Don't just listen to any old body when it comes to your taxes. Get with a professional, pro that knows what they're doing. I'm not a tax professional, but there are tax benefits when it comes to real estate. You can profit, you can win. Now you don't have to give Uncle Sam as much money. Real estate can be a tax shelter for you. Potential deductions can include the qualifying. You can write off the mortgage interest. You can write off property taxes, insurance, repairs and maintenance that happen, property management, professional fees that come along with it, certain operating expenses, and depreciation. There's so many different ways that you can use real estate as a tax advantage, and potentially losses can be written off against your regular 9 to 5 income. So normally, when it comes to your regular 9 to 5 income that Uncle Sam can potentially tax, you could potentially decrease the amount that Uncle Sam can take from your regular 9 to 5 job. Now, Vaughn says, are you saying real estate could also help with credit? Well, whenever you buy a property and you do financing and you pay it monthly, it does reflect great on your credit report as well. So, yes, it can. Depreciation is particularly important because it can allow an investor to recognize a non cash expense for tax purposes. Now, uh, when we look at that, it's a non cash expense for tax purposes. And so, this is an area where a qualified tax pro should help you structure and evaluate your investments, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, get with that tax pro. When we have tenants paying us monthly cash flow, when the house is appreciating in value, when the tenants are paying down the principal balance, that is increasing the amount of equity that we potentially have access to. And we're going to dive into that soon. And of course, we get the tax benefits as well. Let's go to number 5 on the list. When we look at number 5, there's also forced appreciation. Now, many people aren't used to hearing that term, forced appreciation, but forced appreciation, and you don't always have to wait for the market to increase your property value. There are things that you can do also to increase your value. Now, of course, inflation is going to do what it does. The value of property is going to increase, but you can do forced appreciation strategies and tactics as well. You can potentially increase the property's value by improving its income and condition. For example, you buy a property and it's producing, let's say, 1,500 a month, but then you renovate the property, you improve tenant quality, you start doing things like that. You increase the rent appropriately. Once you increase the rent, then now by default, especially on multifamily unit properties, commercial property, that is going to cause the property to be worth more. It's going to appreciate in value. You add permitted amenities, you reduce unnecessary expenses. Now it is producing $2,000 a month. Forced appreciation. You went from 1,500 a month cash flow to now $2,000 a month. So those are some of the things that you can do it for forced appreciation. For income producing properties, increasing net operating income can increase property value, particularly when the property is valued using an income approach. And that goes with basically those multifamily unit properties that I was talking about. There are so many beautiful ways to make money off of real estate. And I'm talking today about 9 different ways to profit off of long-term rental investments. So as y'all are tuned in to Coach Steele's Finance Training, this may be something you thought about, you might be interested in, or you know someone else who might be interested in it. We'll share the live for other people to tune in to Coach Steele's Finance Training so that we can get this information out to help Coach Steele's Finance Training community and listeners so that we as a team can come together. Some of you may want to buy back the block. Some of you may want to go buy another block or have a situation on your hands and you're not sure how to tackle it. How do I make this deal work? How do I do this with financing? What if I haven't been at a job the past 2 years and the bank is saying they need 2 years worth of consistency in that space, and my taxes and all this other stuff, my W-2s, I may be having some issues. There are other creative ways to do financing to be able to acquire these properties and do the investment deal that you're looking at. You have the option of doing DSCR loans, which may not require as much paperwork as the regular way of getting financing for a regular home. So those are some of the things to think about. Sometimes doing a real estate deal may be easier to buy a multifamily, a duplex, quad, 12 unit, a small apartment. It may be easier to get the financing for those than it is for a single family unit property. These are things that we need to talk about here on Coach Steele's Finance Training so that we can overcome these myths, bust them, and walk in the wealth, go get it, go chase after it. So let's get to our next point on today. Don't just buy an investment, improve the investment so that you can enjoy the benefits of the forced appreciation. So let's go a little bit further, ladies and gentlemen, as we're talking about point number 6. We are doing well on today. Vaughn says, so when inflation is rising, Will my funds regulate the same way? Uh, I rent out an Airbnb to someone. Usually, Devon, when uh, inflation goes up, the cost of living goes up. And so he says, and will I make more with inflation as an advantage? Yes, usually what I find with my properties, every time inflation goes up in America, the cost of living, cost of goods and services, rent goes up. So there was one time, Devon, I was managing one of my properties years ago. I was managing it and I started getting more properties. More things started happening. I got real busy. I couldn't manage them anymore. And I remember I had like this 3 bedroom, 2 bath, and I was trying to take care of the tenant. There was a lady, she was over 50 in there. She had fixed income, and I was only charging her $800 a month. But when I left the situation and I put property management over the property, they were like, Coach Steele, why are you charging 800 a month? I was like, what do you mean? It was like, this property is 1500 a month. Everybody else on the street is doing 1500. I said, what? I said, do whatever you need to do. So I went from 800 a month to $1,500 a month. It was a $700 increase in rent. So it increased my profit margins, made things a little bit easier for me, and they got a new tenant in there. But that's another story. But I just want you to understand, yes, with inflation, the cost of living, usually rent goes up as well, pretty consistently with that. So to your point, and what you're talking about, Davon, as an investor, investors don't get intimidated by inflation. They might get excited. But as a regular person who's not investing, who's not in that real estate space or not acquiring assets, when inflation hits the economy in the world, most people get frustrated. Like when the pandemic hit and inflation shot up and the cost of things went up, went crazy. A lot of people's the value of their properties, investment properties went up 50,000, 100,000 uh, in value. So if you had multiple properties, let's say you got 10 properties and they all go up $100,000, you just had access now to $1 million worth of equity in all those properties. So it gives you some options there, which we'll get to as well. What do I do with this equity that I have in these properties? What if I have $500,000 worth of equity? You know, can I tap into that? What are the pros and cons? What are the benefits of tapping into all of that equity, those thousands and thousands of dollars? So let's go a little bit further. Equity growth, that's number six. When we look at the sixth benefit of real estate investing, there's equity growth. And let me see if I can put that up. I don't see any note takers on the Facebook side of the house. So let's see if I can put that up there for those that are tuning in as well so that they'll be able to see it when they go back and watch. Number six, equity growth. So what does that mean, equity growth? Your equity can grow from several sources simultaneously, all at the same time. So equity basically equals the property value minus the mortgage balance. So the value of the property is worth 300,000. If the mortgage balance is 100,000, then the equity is 200,000. You got $200,000 worth of equity because you only owe 100,000, but it's worth 300. So now, as there's 200,000 worth of equity in this scenario, as the investor, you can potentially have access to that $200,000, Vaughn. That's where it gets fun. That's where it gets interesting because what do you do with this $200,000 worth of equity? Now, sometimes there are some banks that can give you 100% loan to value. Usually on investment properties, some banks only give you maybe 70 to 75% loan to value. So regardless, that's still access to thousands of dollars worth of equity. And so tenants are paying this property down, rent is going up, your profit margin is increasing, you're decreasing costs as much as possible, you're putting money to the side in case of a rainy day or tenants don't pay rent, you got this stack of money over here that you have access to, things are going well. And so, property value increases. Let's say your property value increases by 30,000, but remember the tenants are paying towards the principal balance as well. And so if the property increases by 30,000 and the mortgage principal decreased by 10,000, then now you just created and have the opportunity and access to $40,000. And you got access to $40,000 and you didn't do anything. All you did was take the tenant's money, pay the bill. Now the balance went down by $10,000 in this scenario. If the house improves or appreciates in value by 30,000, now you got access to $40,000 just by chilling and being a wise investor. That's why it's so easy to gain wealth in America through real estate investing. And that's why I'm talking about these 9 different ways to profit on long term rentals as well. So you potentially gain $40,000 in equity without even selling the property. And that's why looking at a monthly cash flow can cause investors to miss the bigger picture. If you only look at it and say, well, with a long-term rental, I'm only making an extra 300 a month. I'm only making an extra 500 a month, whatever the case may be, then you miss out on all these other opportunities and access to grow wealth and opportunities to save money because you don't have to give it to Uncle Sam. So it allows you to invest even more because you keep more in your pocket. So now, when you have access to all this equity, point number 7 on today, you can refinance or start accessing equity. Now, when I learned about this point right here, I thought it was so cool as a great way to grow wealth and to make money and profit off of long-term real estate investing. Like it's so cool that to this day, I still can't believe it's like real. And what do I mean by that? The fact that you have access to the equity, and sometimes you'll hear people talk about using the Burr method and things like that. But the fact that you can refinance a property, whether it's a cash out refi or you can do have access to the funds in your property through a HELOC, home equity line of credit, selling, redeploying capital, refinancing in different loan terms. The objective isn't simply, ladies and gentlemen, to take the money out of a property. The objective is to determine whether accessing equity can help you acquire another productive asset that will pay you while maintaining and sustainable the cash flow and manageable risk. So it only makes sense sometimes to pull the equity out of a property. Let's say you got access to $100,000. There's equity in this property, it appreciated in value. The tenant is paying it down. So you got access to 100,000. You pull that 100,000 out. Now, when you do that, this is what I love about real estate. It's not a taxable event. If you pull $100,000 out of that property, ladies and gentlemen, whether it's a cash out refi or you have it through access to a HELOC, that's money you can do whatever you want with, and you don't have to pay taxes on because it's not a taxable event. It's seen as a loan. And of course, the tenant is going to pay that balance back down. But if you were to do a cash out refi, you need to do your formulas, you need to do your math to make sure that the property is still going to be profitable because now you change what your monthly payment is on that financing. So whatever it costs to service that debt by that action, is the tenant still going to cover that? Am I still going to be profitable? Is my cash on cash return still going to be decent on that property if I take that action? So always do your own homework and research on that. So now in this scenario, you have access to $100,000. That means you can go buy another property. That means you can go invest. That means you may want to throw that money in stocks. I don't know. You may want to day trade. You may want to go on vacation. You may want to find a multifamily unit property. You may want to go buy 2 more doors. Whatever it is, now you can take that money. You can take that equity because it's not a taxable event and go create another cash flowing opportunity. Now, from this scenario, when we talk about number 7, refinancing, accessing equity to create another asset, you can create another asset, create more passive income without having to use your own money. You use the equity, you turn the bricks into cash. You took that money and now you didn't have to go create more money. You didn't have to go make more money. You didn't have to wait till you made enough money on your 9 to 5, save it up for 2, 3 years, whatever. You have access to equity and you can go create another cash flowing property. And so that is the beautiful part of that. Vaughn says, but you said not to do what you want us to be informed on wealth and fundamentals investments for rainy days. As you say, take that equity. Why not wait? So I'm not sure what you're saying, but my guess is, if I had to guess what you're saying, yes, you have access to equity, but you can have a rainy day fund off to the side, but you still have access to equity to hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so that's just something that you want to think about. As you have a property for a while, you'll get to consistently see what is the maintenance, what are the repairs, what does it look like. So you'll know, okay, once I have 10,000 or once I have $20,000 saved off to the side, that's more than enough. I can start paying myself out this amount every month. So you can determine all of that later on. Um, and so there are multiple ways to create equity. We talked about force appreciation or the equity that happens in the house through tenants paying down the balance. But sometimes, if you buy right, listen to what I'm saying, if you buy the property right and you're able to make a good deal, you can buy the property and immediately have equity in the property and access to equity just from buying right. I tell everyone this story a long time ago. I bought this townhouse in, I don't know, 2018, 2019, when houses didn't cost much. It was a two-bedroom, one and a half bath, and it was worth about $50,000. And then they were trying to sell it to me for 45,000. I brought my inspector. We did some stuff, checked some stuff out. Oh, it needs this. Oh, it needs that. Blah blah blah. Some stuff they didn't tell me, and so I was like, okay, new deal. We're not buying for 45,000. I'm only buying this thing for $31,000. Back and forth. They finally broke. They agreed. The seller needed the money bad. So I bought this two-bedroom, one bathroom for $31,000. Instant win because the rent was like $730 a month. So it was like 730 a month. And of course, that on that deal I paid cash. And so therefore my cash on cash return was pretty smooth. But that was, I don't know, 2018, 2019. We're talking about like 7 years ago. And so the rent, of course, is no longer $730. The rent is well over $1,000 a month. So if you do the math, 1,000 a month times 12 is $12,000. 3 years, that's $36,000. So once the rent went over $1,000 after 3 years, my profit was the 30. I've already made the $31,000 back that I bought the property for. Now the property is no longer worth $50,000. That property is worth over $100,000 now. So when you talk about the equity, if I bought it for 31,000, but I didn't even finance it, just paid in cash, that means I owe nothing on it. So when the tenant pays me rent, a majority of that is profit. Remember, property taxes and insurance got to get paid. So let's say, I don't know, that's $200, but the rent is 1,000. So maybe that's like $800 profit every month. 800 times 12. That's the cash flow for the year. I mean, the profit for the year in this scenario. Now, if the property is worth over 100,000 and I don't owe anything on it, I have access to $100,000 worth of equity. I can refinance this property, cash out refi, and set it up to where my payments are, I don't know, 500 a month. I'm still winning, right? I can go create another property and whatever it is, I don't know if I refinance for $50,000 or something. I don't know. Let's say my monthly payments are 500 a month. That property will be paid off in no time, just off the profits, right? If I were to, do some extra. Now I've created another property because I take that $50,000. It's not a taxable event. Go put it down on another property. Now I have rent coming in again, and I can duplicate this process over and over and over. So just understand there are benefits when you have access to equity, and the equity that is there is created through appreciation and the tenant making those principal payments that we talked about in point number 3, tenant paid principal reduction. So a lot of beautiful sequence of events, things are happening along the way to produce all of this. Now, as equity builds, investors may eventually have opportunities to restructure the property's financing, like I mentioned, and you can do that through cash out refinancing, HELOC, selling and redeploying capital, refinancing into different loan terms, DSCR loans, all kind of different stuff, right? So The objective isn't simply, once again, to take money out of a property. The objective is to determine whether accessing equity can help you acquire another productive asset while maintaining sustainable cash flow and manageable risk with the property that you're leveraging, right? So now let's go a little bit further. Number 8, ladies and gentlemen, give yourselves a hand clap if you're doing well and you made it this far. Some clap emojis in that comment section. You are doing well. Make sure you share the live as we are talking about other creative ways to create cash flow, to profit, to win off of long-term real estate investing. Sometimes it starts with a conversation and planting some seeds, and it continues to grow into other things. Rent growth. Over a long holding period, rent may increase. That's number 8 on today. Rent growth, rent growth, rent growth. And as I get ready to dive into rent growth, and I won't stay there long because we've already kind of talked about that a little bit with Tony Sherman's question. You all, even though you are following me on TikTok, you could also subscribe to my Facebook page for 99 cents a month. And that's basically, I take that 99 cents and I do work over in Cameroon, Africa. And in Cameroon, Africa, when I do that work, we are building churches. And let's see. And so we're building churches, we're giving back, we're helping those that are less fortunate and things like that. And uh, for kids that may not have clothes, may not have shoes, to orphanages. And of course, we have 3 churches that we're in the process of building right now. So your 99 cent, all of it, not some of it, all of it goes to that cause, to what we're doing over in Cameroon, Africa, the mission work. So thank you for those that do go over and subscribe for 99 cents a month. Rent growth. Now, for over a long period of time, rent may increase while your original mortgage payment remains relatively stable if you have a fixed rate financing. Your financing, your principal and interest payments won't change. Now, property tax, insurance, escrow will, but those mortgage payments, if you have a fixed rate, will remain the same, usually on average for a 30-year mortgage, 15-year mortgage, however long that financing is. Like year 1, your rent might be $1,800 a month. By year 5, you may be charging $2,100 a month. And next thing you know, you've had that property for 10 years and now your rent is $2,400 a month. Or it may be similar to like my case, where I had one property that I was charging $800 a month, and it went from $800 a month to $1,500 a month in 1 year, just because I had not been raising the rent and trying to make it affordable as possible for one of my favorite tenants. Now, meanwhile, your principal and interest payments on a fixed rate does not automatically rise with market rents. However, like I mentioned, escrow, taxes, insurance, maintenance, and other expenses can increase. So investors should evaluate net cash flow, not just rent alone. Number 9, ladies and gentlemen, and we're coming down the home stretch to the last point on today. We are doing amazing. We're almost done. Y'all are doing good. And I may do another segment on this again. Maybe I'll do some visuals, but I'm definitely going to run through and do this class again. I love it. My business is Coach Steele's Finance Training, Vaughn. And so I'm live every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone, talking about financial literacy or interviewing a business owner, entrepreneur, and we're talking about finances here on Coach Steele's Finance Training. So when we go a little bit further here, let's look at this. It says inflation hedge. And we've talked about this as well, but real estate can provide a potential hedge against inflation because rents will increase over time. Property is tangible asset. Fixed rate mortgage debt can become less burdensome in real terms as prices and incomes rise. And so it isn't a perfect hedge, and property expenses can also rise with inflation. You have to pay the plumber and the AC guy a little more than you did before because of inflation. But it's one reason investors can consider real estate as a long-term wealth building asset. So the big picture, you get to stack your returns, and it's a great retirement vehicle as well when it comes to real estate, because you can set it up to where you decide to put this thing, I don't know, in your real estate portfolio in a self-directed Roth IRA. You can set it up to where I'm just not going to touch any of my profits, and I'm going to use this as my retirement. And I'm just going to cash out or take the equity, the value, and all of this and transition it into some other type of retirement vehicle investments and things like that. That's a little bit safer, a little more consistent. So make sure you stack your returns. And these are some of the things you can learn and understand when it comes to having a successful rental property and portfolio. Because with that, it can produce cash flow, and that's which is money left over after expenses and debt service. Remember, number two, you're going to have that appreciation. It increases in property value. Number three, principal reduction by the tenant paid. And number four, you got different tax benefits depending on how you handle your taxes. Number five, forced appreciation. There's some things you can do, increase rent, fix up some things to make the property increase in value. Number six, you got rent growth, potential increasing income over the holding period, uh, which equals multiple wealth building engines as well. So don't ask only how much rent will this property make. I want you to start thinking about it now that you know that there's 9 different ways to make money off of this property. I want you to ask how many ways can this property build wealth for me and not and of course with the tax benefits, that means you don't have to give as much back to Uncle Sam, which you can keep more, which means you can invest more, which increases your profits. And when evaluating a rental, don't forget the other side of the equation. Vacancies, there's repairs, there's capital expenditures, there's property management, insurance, taxes, financing costs, and unexpected expenses that you would not expect. You may have to repair a roof, you may have to repair a hole in the wall. A property that looks profitable before those items may not actually be a good investment. So it goes back to what I say over and over, make sure you buy right. And if you buy right, you'll win. If you buy right at the right price and the right opportunities, even when you find these bumps in the roads, you can still win long term because you got 9 different strategies to make yourself money. So one issue won't defeat the 9 with the momentum. So I appreciate everybody tuning in to Coach Steele's Finance Training. You all did an awesome job on today in that comment section. Once again, make sure you give yourselves a hand clap and a pat on the back in that comment section. Like I said, make sure you all congratulate yourself. You did an awesome job on today. 9 different ways to profit on long-term rental real estate investing. Once again, make sure you go to my YouTube channel and subscribe to Coach Steele's Finance Training and go to my Facebook page and subscribe for 99 cents a month. Appreciate you all again. Shout out to you, Kenise. Shout out to you, Ranash. Happy to have y'all all tuned in to Coach Steele's Finance Training and supporting consistently. Love y'all. Be blessed.